The morning sun reflected off the glass towers as Marcus Chin hurried through the revolving doors of Sterling Financial Group. His shirt was wrinkled, and his tie sat crooked against his collar. He hadn't slept more than 3 hours. His daughter Emily had been up most of the night with a fever, and he'd spent the early hours at the emergency clinic before dropping her at his mother's house. The executive meeting was already underway on the 42nd floor. Marcus slipped into the boardroom as quietly as possible. 6 pairs of eyes turned toward him. At the head of the table stood Victoria Ashford. She was 38 years old and the youngest CEO in the company's history. Her blonde hair fell perfectly over the shoulders of her tailored white blazer. Her expression was ice. "How generous of you to join us, Marcus." Her voice cut through the room like a blade. "I apologize sincerely," Marcus began. "My daughter was ill, and I had to make sure she was taken care of before coming in." Victoria's jaw tightened. She placed both hands flat on the table and leaned forward. "I don't recall asking for your life story. This is the 3rd time this month you've been late. Do you think your personal circumstances give you special privileges?" The other executives looked down at their papers. Marcus felt heat rise to his face. "No, ma'am. I take my responsibilities here very seriously. It's just that as a single parent, sometimes emergencies happen, and I have to handle them first." Victoria straightened up. Her blue eyes were cold and unyielding. "Let me make something perfectly clear to everyone in this room. I didn't build my career by making excuses. I got here through discipline and sacrifice. If you can't manage your personal life without it affecting your professional performance, then perhaps you're in the wrong position." She turned her gaze directly at Marcus. "Look at me again, and you're fired." The words hung in the air like smoke. Marcus dropped his eyes to the table. The meeting continued, but he heard nothing. Humiliation burned in his chest. He thought about Emily's small face that morning. She had asked him if he had to go to work. He'd kissed her forehead and promised he'd be home as soon as he could. 3 days passed. Marcus arrived early each morning and stayed late each evening. He barely saw his daughter. His mother was kind enough to help, but he could see the tiredness in her eyes, too. On Friday afternoon, Victoria's assistant called Marcus to her office. His heart raced as he rode the elevator up. Was this it? Was he being let go? Victoria sat behind her massive desk. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline behind her. "Sit down, Marcus." He sat. She studied him for a long moment. Her expression was unreadable. "I've been reviewing your work. Your performance has actually been exceptional despite your tardiness. The Henderson account alone brought in $2.3 million this quarter." Marcus nodded but said nothing. "I'm promoting you to senior director." He blinked in surprise. However, she continued, "I expect perfect punctuality moving forward. No exceptions. Can you commit to that?" "Yes." "Thank you," he managed, but even as he said it, Marcus felt a weight in his stomach. Perfect punctuality meant even less time with Emily. It meant asking more of his aging mother. But he needed this job. He needed the income. He had no choice. 2 weeks later, Marcus was working late when his phone rang. It was his mother. Her voice was shaking. "Marcus, you need to come now." Emily collapsed. "We're at Mercy Hospital." The world tilted. He grabbed his jacket and ran. At the hospital, his mother sat in the waiting room with tears streaming down her face. Emily had been diagnosed with severe pneumonia. She was in intensive care. The doctor said she'd been fighting this infection for weeks, but it had been masked by the fever medication Marcus had been giving her. "If you'd brought her in sooner, we could have caught this earlier," the doctor said gently. Marcus felt like he'd been punched. He'd been so focused on not losing his job that he'd missed the signs. His little girl had been suffering, and he'd been too distracted to notice. He sat by Emily's bedside through the night. She looked so small, surrounded by machines and tubes. Her breathing was labored. He held her hand and wept quietly. On Monday morning, Marcus didn't go to work. He didn't call either. Emily needed him, and nothing else mattered. If he lost his job, then he lost his job. By Tuesday afternoon, Victoria had heard through the office grapevine that Marcus hadn't shown up or called in. She was furious. This was exactly the kind of unreliability she wouldn't tolerate. She decided to handle it personally. She drove to the address in his employee file. It was a modest neighborhood. Small houses with chain-link fences. Children's toys scattered in yards. This wasn't what she'd expected. She knocked on the door. Marcus's mother answered. Her face was drawn and exhausted. "Can I help you?" "I'm Victoria Ashford. I'm Marcus's employer. Is he here?" The older woman's expression hardened. "He's at the hospital with his daughter. She's very sick." Victoria felt something shift inside her. "Which hospital?" 20 minutes later, Victoria walked through the pediatric intensive care unit. She found Marcus asleep in a chair beside a small bed. A little girl with dark hair lay sleeping. Monitors beeped softly. The child's breathing was assisted by an oxygen mask. Victoria stood in the doorway, and something inside her cracked open. She saw herself 25 years ago. A different hospital. A different child. Her younger brother Daniel had been sick with leukemia. Her parents had worked constantly to pay for treatments. She'd been left to sit with Daniel through long nights. She remembered feeling so alone and so scared. Marcus stirred and opened his eyes. When he saw Victoria standing there, his face went pale. "I can explain." She held up her hand. "How is she?" "The doctors say she'll recover, but it will take time. I'm sorry I didn't call. I just couldn't leave her." Victoria pulled up a chair and sat down. "What's her name?" "Emily. She's 7-inch. They sat in silence for a moment. "I had a brother," Victoria said quietly. "Daniel. He got sick when I was 14. My parents worked all the time to afford his care. I spent months in hospitals, just like this one sitting beside him, just like you're sitting beside her." Marcus looked at her with surprise. "Did he recover?" "Yes. He's an architect now. Lives in Seattle with his family." She looked at Emily's small face. "I've spent my entire career trying to prove that emotions and personal circumstances don't matter. That success comes from pure discipline and sacrifice. I built walls around myself because I never wanted to feel that helpless again." Her voice cracked slightly. "But looking at you with your daughter, I realize I've been wrong. The sacrifice that matters isn't sacrificing your humanity for success. It's sacrificing comfort for the people you love." Marcus didn't know what to say. Victoria stood up. "Take all the time you need. Your position will be waiting for you. And Marcus, from now on, if Emily needs you, I want you to take care of her first. I mean that." She turned to leave, then stopped. "I'm sorry for how I treated you, for what I said in that meeting. You deserve better." 3 weeks later, Emily came home from the hospital. Marcus took another week off to care for her. When he returned to work, he found that Victoria had implemented a new company policy allowing flexible schedules for parents and caregivers. She had also moved her office to a smaller space and donated the money saved to the children's hospital. Marcus and Victoria never became close friends, but they developed a mutual respect. She learned to lead with compassion. He learned that asking for help wasn't weakness. Years later, when Emily graduated from college, Marcus invited Victoria to attend. She sat in the audience and watched the young woman walk across the stage. Afterward, Emily hugged her and whispered thank you. Sometimes the hardest lessons come from the moments that break us open. And sometimes the strongest leaders are the ones who learn that true strength includes gentleness. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment below telling us about a time when someone showed you unexpected kindness. Your story might inspire someone else today.